Well, and we're going to move on. The next team I kind of wanted to throw out there was a team that they didn't get the guy they wanted in Kevin Durant, but they still got a pretty big free agent signing in Al Horford the Boston Celtics. And this first thing we're just going to talk about them is plain and simple. Based on what the moves that they made in the draft, getting Jaylen Brown, and then they got DJ from Notre Dame, kind of a guard to play. They got Ben Bentel later in the second, and then getting Al Horford, their kind of big free agent signing.
Yeah.
Do you think the Celtics have any chance of overtaking the Raptors for number one in the Atlantic?
That's a good question. And I'm going to say no. Because I think that Toronto this year
got better. They lost Bismack.
They're still.
Oh my God! Just dropping it on them.
No, I think Toronto has such a nice, healthy balance within their starting five where they can just beat you in several different facets of the game. But in Boston, I'm kind of, I don't know. They had a lot of draft picks this year, a lot, and they decided on Jaylen Brown. They obviously saw something in Brown to take him over Chris Dunn, because I still
don't know why they didn't.
I figured Chris Dunn was their guy. Was the guy.
It's hard to draft a point guard when you have an all-star point guard on your team.
And you have two already. Right. Marcus Smart's not terrible, but he's not Isaiah Thomas.
Marcus Smart is the defensive stopper. Yeah. I mean, he brings something special. He's a specialist. But you're right. You have an all-star, and then you have a specialist you can bring in behind him to cover those situations. So
you're then going to bring in another guy who's probably going to be he's just going to jump Marcus Smart and fight Isaiah Thomas for that starting job, but really you wouldn't do that, and you just say no, you're going to be the backup behind him, which wouldn't sit well with him. I don't know why they didn't try to make a trade. I know the biggest one.
They tried.
I don't know why they didn't pull a trigger. I would have pulled the trigger on something. I know that it's kind of like you're probably sitting there watching or listening saying, well, Ricky, you weren't in the war room. You don't know what the exact details and what was being said was out there.
I know the horseshit details that got leaked were wrong, and they're all like, "Oh, smart move, Boston, keep the pick." They were asking too much.
But Jaylen Brown, with him, I feel like it's a huge potential kind of a pick.
Oh yeah, he has all the physical
pick.
Needs to be a superstar in this league, but he's got so much room to grow, and I wonder what kind of timeline they're working on. Because you have an all-star in Isaiah Thomas. Yep. You have Avery Bradley
nice compliment.
And Jay Crowder, who together are one of the best tandems defensively that you could put out there. So you start to wonder, like, and they picked up Al Horford now. And I just kind of go, I don't know when your timeline is, because Jaylen Brown, year one, he's going to be inefficient. His money is coming at the line. The man drives to the paint. He is very good at that. Because of his athleticism, he's got bursts of speed. He's got to build up his strength, because NBA centers, NBA power forwards will be able to bully him a little bit better than college league, obviously. But look, I see him as like 2-3 years down being a very, very good player. But in 2 to 3 years, are you still going to have Al Horford's past his prime at that point? Isaiah Thomas, you're going to have to pay out a huge contract to if you want to keep him. I just don't know what that turns this team into when they're going to compete for a championship.
And this kind of thinks to me, talking about like this draft pick and stuff, this is the flip side from basketball to football. Football, you can draft a guy, you know what?
Plug him in right away.
You can plug him in right away, but let's say it's a quarterback like a Jared Goff. You know what?
Yeah, right.
Or like an Aaron Rodgers. Sit 2 years.
Sure.
Because you have so many people on that team.
Yeah.
Whereas basketball, it's like you could say, oh, well, we're going to use you in limited playing time. But then it becomes there's so many less roster spots that you have to contribute more your first year.
I mean, I think they want to throw him out there. You got to dump him in the deep end right off the bat, because if you don't, then you're delaying his growth. And so you're kind of in that mix, because if I'm going back to football, you look at Carr when the Texans started as a franchise, the man was murdered. Like, he had no chance of becoming a successful NFL quarterback because he was put in such a shit situation. Thankfully, Jaylen Brown is on a team who is a playoff contender.
Absolutely, top 4 in the East. Possibly.
So early in the season, I could see him getting some good minutes, and then it's going to depend on how well he fits on that team, how well he grows. If he's going to see playing time at the end of the season, and then in the playoffs, he's going to probably have a much more limited role unless he really comes out swinging.
What do we see overall for this team? I know I asked you guys, can they overtake the Raptors, but they were kind of middle of the pack, I want to say. in the Eastern
I
Conference.
was a buyer in the Celtics last year. I thought they were going to go all the way,
Are
or
they
at least the Eastern Conference Finals.
Are they making a push this year now with Al Horford?
You know what?
Is Jaylen Brown going to do something? Take me through your crystal ball at the end of the year, playoff time. What are we talking about with the Celtics?
I think their backcourt keeps them extremely competitive, especially Isaiah Thomas is able to win games on his own. But I really like their depth within the center and their power forward position. Al Horford and Kelly Olynyk. We talk about our six-man rankings. Olynyk's in there.
Yeah, we're going to get to those.
Absolutely.
That's great.
So
defensively, he is an annoyance down low.
I talked about a healthy balance in their starting five within the Raptors. This Boston Celtics team can beat you in several different ways. And when you have an all-star and Isaiah Thomas leading the way, anything can happen.
And
the concern, though, with Isaiah is he going to live up again this year? Was last year a fluke?
Is it going to be a sophomore slump type season? Is that
It's
what
not a
you're getting
sophomore,
to?
but, you know.
But you know what I mean. Like last year was the breakout season. Now it's kind of like
right, and that's my
sophomore
concern.
slump.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be a sophomore slump. Got to use the air quotes there.
Since he's been in the league for a couple of years, yeah.
To me, I look at this. I look at the team that they're probably going to go up against
Cavs?
in them and them divisionally, the Raptors.
Right.
That's who they're going to fight for number one in this division. You got Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan still staying around, still being
Carroll.
there. Carroll is still there. You got Valanciunas coming back healthy after getting injured in the playoffs. And I like what they did bench-wise. I mean, yeah, you did the smart move, Toronto, by not giving Bismack Biyombo the money that he wanted. You let Orlando take that. Good job on you. And then you went in the draft and got a guy that I loved, and I love him for his defense, a Jakob Poeltl, that you can go ahead and plug in there and say, hey, you know what? You can go and be the Bismack guy right behind Valanciunas. I think the Raptors they're still my favorite to win the Atlantic.
Yeah.
I think Boston's going to be there right behind them. And then everyone else is kind of like a crapshoot. It's like, are the Knicks going to take that next step? What are we going to see from the Sixers? And then the Nets are kind of there.
The NBA is trying to focus more on winning the division, right? Am I right in terms of playoff seeding?
They're trying to get the division
Opposite.
out of there.
They're trying to get rid of divisions entirely.
Because I know there was something going on within the. Because honestly,
as of right now, division champions don't mean anything.
See, that doesn't make any sense to me.
It's just how you are in the top 8 teams get in.
Well, regardless, I still think the Toronto Raptors are the team to beat in that conference, or in that division specifically. But yeah, Kyle Lowry slowly developing into my favorite player in the NBA. I said this before the podcast.
He slowly developed in the NBA too.
Well, yeah, it took him a while.
He's 30 years old right now.
It took him a while, right? But no, he's taking huge strides, especially last season. And DeMar DeRozan is a nice compliment at shooting guard, lockdown shooter. Averaged 24 points last season. That's really nice.
Oh, he is a stud right now, and he probably, if he continues on this pace, is probably go down as one of the greatest Toronto Raptors ever. I mean, he made a statement this offseason, re-signing with Toronto instead of going to LA, because he's like, you know what? I want to make my impact here. I want to be the guy in Toronto. And you mentioned earlier, and it's this starting five, the versatility they offer, because they do have that 1-2 punch in DeMar and Kyle, but then they have the defensive presence of DeMar Carroll. If he's healthy, he did some amazing things for Atlanta, and I feel like his impact here has been sort of limited due to the system, but I think he's going to find his way to be a shut-down small forward again. Patrick Patterson, I don't know why I can't talk.
We
Quality
should call
player.
him Patrick Peterson like I like
I
to
know.
do NFL
I almost
style.
did. I wanted to up here. It was going. I think he and Jared Sullinger are going to kind of fight for that role. They're going to play back and forth, probably similar minutes. But really, it comes down to Will Valanciunas breakout this year. Is he going to be that dependable big who they can just dump to in the paint and he can start taking over games, or are they still just going to be a backcourt team?
I think that in the front court for them, I think that Valanciunas will be fine. I think eventually we see Patterson get taken out of that starting role and get replaced with the new guy they brought in from Boston, Jared Sullinger.
Sullinger's a productive big. So.
I think he's gonna
He was
come
a good
in.
offseason signing.
If you're talking about you want production outside of the backcourt, you got to start Sullinger at some point.
I think he's going to eventually overtake Patterson for that starting role, and then we're going to see. Well, and that's the big thing of, do we throw Sullinger out there with DeMar Carroll, or is it going to be a kind of switcher swap where it's when Carroll's not out there, we have Sullinger out there to kind of keep that big body defensive game.
It's possible. They've got options, which is one of the best things you can have when it comes to matchups.
Terrence Ross is no pushover.
He's no slouch. Yeah,
and I mean, the guys they have young, I mean, these are guys that could develop. Like I said, I like Pirtle. I think he's going to get a ton of minutes.
Year one, he can get you like 8 and 6.
But like I like Jared Utah from Iowa. Fred Van Vliet, that's really... I just liked Wichita State.
I think he's going to be a D leaguer.
Yeah,
No
but the guy right above him that they took 2 drafts ago that I wanted the Bulls to take out of Utah, I believe, DeLon Wright. Can he develop into anything? Because I know they've got Corey Joseph right now in front of him to be right behind Lowry.
No, I think DeLon Wright has a chance, but it really depends on how quickly Toronto gets rolling. If they start getting ahead of teams quickly, then you're going to see more time out of the bench players. Kind of like we saw at the Warriors when they started blowing teams out. It was time for the bench mob to come in. You don't leave your stars out there. And I think knowing how good they're going to be this year, they might take a little bit more of a cautious approach to this, and bring DeMar and Kyle's playing time down a little bit. As long as they can still manage to stay at the top of that division, I think they're going to play a little smarter this year.
Are the Raptors the second best team in the East?
I was just going to throw it out there. I was going to say before we go to the Nets, last year the Raptors
basement buddy.
Raptors were number 2 last year, only a game behind Cleveland. I was going to throw out this: is this the year Toronto overtakes Cleveland for a number 1 seed going into the playoffs?
It was
only one game last year.
Yeah, it's okay. Not to depreciate this conversation at all, but it's like regular season. How much does it matter?
It really doesn't.
And it really does, as long as you make it to the dance.
Well, the only thing that I think it matters for is I do agree with you.
Because home
that's
court.
what I'm saying. Like, if I'm meeting Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals, I want a chance to have possible 4 home games.
Well, in the North, I mean, shit, that place went crazy
King
last
of the
year.
North.
Well, we saw finally Toronto overcoming that huge, burden on their shoulders, not being able to get out of the first round.
They should have almost lost to the Pacers.
They almost blew it.
They should have.
They almost blew it.
But look, I think you guys are maybe taking a backseat on this Knicks team. I think they're dangerous, and I think this Knicks team has a chance to go past both the Celtics and Toronto to be the number 2 in the East.
Ooh,
I'll say it. They got a chance.
I don't know. I think
if you get an All-Star year out of Derrick Rose,
I think the Knicks can be a 5.
They need a contract year type.
Derrick Rose goes back to what we saw last year. Even if you get exactly what you saw last year, healthy for 70 games.
I'm just not like
he's a stud. You have Carmelo Anthony and Porzingis.
Dave.
Come on.
I'm not like the playoff thing for the Knicks. I'm not too that's not too crazy because really for me. For just the 7th and 8th,
no, they'll make the playoffs.
I think that there are teams like the Bulls, depending on how they play, but I'm not really confident.
Jesus Christ,
the Wizards, if they could have both their backcourt guys out there. Orlando, let's see what they do. The Bucks, maybe, and the Knicks. That's 5 teams.
Sean's not here right now, but Orlando suck it pretty much.
That's 5 teams fighting for 2 spots. Oh wait, let's put the 2 teams that'll probably fall out in maybe like a Charlotte or an Atlanta.
It's up for discussion for sure.
Absolutely.
Like you can't discard.
But the Pacers got way better this offseason.
I know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think you can outright give Toronto the number 2 overall because of the improvements other teams have made. And really, Toronto.
I think they're going to be the best team in the
Atlantic. I feel
Atlantic
like Toronto stayed even. I don't think they lost. Like we said, they lost Bismack Biyombo, but they got Jakob Poeltl. I feel like that's a great fit. It gives them maybe a little bit better offensive, but maybe a knockdown on the boards. But look. Other than that, stayed pretty much the same. They picked up Solinger, good fit. I don't think they really improved their team on a level that just clearly they're the number 2 in the East. I don't think that's there yet.
And I don't think they had to. The big thing for them was keeping their guy, making sure he doesn't go to L.A. And then it was, okay, Bismack, you're walking. And it was basically, do we figure that out in free agency or do we go into the draft? They got the draft, didn't do anything free agency wise that was bigger than that.
They got Solinger in free agency.
Well, I'm saying like the big free agent take over Jakob Poeltl, so he'd be behind that.
Right.
But before we piss off net fans, we got to mention him. Jeremy Lin signed with him. I guess that's a big
I love
deal.
Jeremy Lin.
Well,
so
I love
great
Jay Lin, but
the Nets are still trying to rebuild from their attempt at going for it all a few years back.
Fell on their fucking face.
And unfortunately for the Nets fans, you saw some pretty crappy basketball over the last couple seasons.
They could have had Jaylen Brown.
They could have.
They could have Chris Dunn. Let's
so
be
what?
honest.
They traded one of their best players, Thaddeus Young, for a first-round draft pick.
I like that though. I liked them getting back into the draft.
So they drafted Chris LeVert, right?
Potential.
So there's a lot there.
But injury questions.
Sure, there's questions.
That's why they got him at a discount, man. There's no way Chris Levert would, or Karis Levert. I can't say his name.
Did
Karis.
I say Chris Levert?
It's Karis.
Yeah.
God, see,
We got you, Mike. We got
thanks.
you.
Yeah, but
go
anyway,
on
no.
what you were saying.
There's no way he would have fallen that far. Yeah, without the injury.
6'7" combo guard who can shoot the three. 4 years at Michigan. He's a very experienced player. You know what? He could probably step in right away in Brooklyn, and if they decide to start him, I think they should. Might as well if you're the Nets. You know, just let him play. Let him show you what he can do in the NBA. And if you're the Nets at this point, you just want to be able to kind of reload and rebuild for next year.
It's Brook Lopez's team. I mean, it's really they feed the beast down low. He keeps him in games as much as he can,
Which is kind of counterintuitive to what the NBA
the
is
traditional
now, which
NBA
is a
now.
guard. It's
Right.
a guard league. It's
well,
a guards league.
That's why they went out and got
Shoot the three.
Linsanity.
Shoot the three. It's a guards league.
They got Linsanity out there.
6'7" guard though, like.
Oh yeah, if
pretty
Levert
good.
stays healthy, they got a steal, and they got Bogdanovich coming off of a great performance in the Olympics. Look, I mean, this is a team who's going to be at the bottom again, unfortunately. But they've got outside of Levert, Whitehead and Yogi Ferrell, guys who could contribute. I mean, this is a team that, like the 76ers, we're going to see a lot of playing time for guys who aren't necessarily starters. They're going to spread out. They're going to find out, look, we're going widespread net. We'll catch something good here. And I think they have that chance. They've got a couple pieces here and there, though. I think 3 years, 4 years down the road, this team could start to form a semblance of a actual chance.
They need draft picks.
They need draft picks
and
so
that's what you
badly.
need. Like the whole Boston trade.
Brook
that
Lopez
they
is going to
made.
be gone at some point for draft picks. You know they're going to get greedy.
Well, it's not going to be greedy. It's going to be hey, we need draft picks, and basically you scoring.
Thanks for carrying our franchise, Brook. But
you scoring over 20 points a night.
You're a detriment
just
to
ain't
us getting
cutting
a high
it.
draft pick.
But as we kind of wrap up this divisional segment of the podcast, I want you guys to tell us down below what you think about the division as a whole. If one of your favorite teams is in this division, let us know what you think. And ultimately, who do you have winning this division, basically being the best? Because although the division winners don't count anymore,
It still matters right here.
If you win the division, odds are you're making the playoffs because
No shit.
you're going to be one of the top four unless a division just rolls and have all their teams make the playoffs.
Unprecedented.
However, we're going to move into.
In
Go
the
ahead,
NBA,
Mike.
you don't win the division, or you win the division, and you have still a chance not to make the playoffs.
I like how it used to be. You win your division, you get a top four seed. However, there's that one team that could do better than a division winner to get a top four.
Unbelievable. Whatever.
Like I like that, but they got rid of it.